Today we're driving the 2020 Subaru Legacy. This is the Touring XT, painted in magnetite gray metallic. This Legacy is powered by a 2.4-liter turbocharged boxer engine that makes 260 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque. That's mated to what Subaru calls their high-torque Lineartronic CVT. It gets 24 miles to the gallon in the city, 32 on the highway, for a 27 mpg combined rating. This new 2020 Subaru Legacy is built on Subaru's global platform. It has an all-new tablet-style Subaru Starlink multimedia system, which is an 11.6-inch high-res touchscreen with on-screen controls for audio, HVAC, and other vehicle features. It also has the Eyesight Assist monitor, which offers a heads-up display on the windshield for eyesight warnings and various driving display status information like cruise control. This Legacy also has Subaru's driver focus distraction mitigation system that can identify signs of driver fatigue or distraction. So if you're on your phone and you're keeping your eyes off the road, it'll give you a little prompt to say, hey, pay attention, keep your eyes on the road. This new Legacy has an increase in passenger volume and a small increase in rear passenger legroom by 1.4 inches over the old Legacy. There's an available Wi-Fi hotspot and a front view 180-degree camera. The MSRP on this Legacy Touring XT is $35,895 with destination and delivery. That brings us up to $36,795 as tested. Lots of luxury and tech in the Subaru Legacy. Let's talk about it and go for a drive. All new Subaru Legacy. We have this massive touchscreen here. It seems to work pretty well. It's a little bit laggy, a little bit sluggish. I wish it were slightly more responsive. And you do have to put some muscle into your presses. And sometimes it doesn't quite respond to your inputs, like right now. It's okay, it works. There's some deep menus that you have to use to get to stuff. Like, for example, if you want to turn off the auto stop start, you have to go into settings. And turn that off there. So there's a few menus. Luckily though, this Legacy has an excellent cruise control and lane keep assist system. We'll get into that a little bit later. But for now, I mean, I think once you have everything set to your liking, this is going to work out pretty well. Sometimes on startup, it's a little bit slow to get going, but once you get going, everything responds quickly. It just doesn't have that sweetness, that crispness of an iPad or maybe even like a Tesla screen. For something that you're using all of your inputs in, besides a couple little climate control buttons and volume knobs, I'd like a little bit better response. But it's pretty bright, it's pretty clear, it's very nice and high resolution, it's attractive enough. You get a decently sized reverse camera. There's also a forward-facing 180-degree camera that you can see for stuff going forward. They're a little distorted, they're a little bit low res, but that's okay. There's really only so much you can use horizontally with this vertically oriented screen. We have a lot of controls and a lot of buttons in this Legacy. Heated steering wheel button is really accessible and easy to use. And I mean, that's kind of why you buy a Legacy too, is to use in cold climates for the all-wheel drive. We've got some snow coming in later tonight, and I think we're going to test this out in the slippery stuff, see how it does, if we get enough, and hopefully it doesn't miss us. We've got a lot of information here in the center display in the gauge cluster, a compass, tire pressure, how much gas we've saved with the auto stop start system, our trip, miles remaining, all that good stuff. Cruise control is really easy to operate. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Over here we've got our trunk pop button, our gauge display brightness. Got a couple memory seat settings, and 4 automatic windows on all 4 sides, which is very nice. A couple of cup holders here, center armrest to put your phone. You've got a little USB port in there. Actually, it's a 120 volt outlet. A couple USB ports here labeled as 2.1 amps, as well as an auxiliary jack. Everything is really easy to access and falls to hand nicely. Once you get familiarized with the cabin, it's all quite nice. Little sunroof there too. A those guys slide. While we're here, let's even pop the hood. Look at that, it looks like an engine. I'm glad that Subaru is still making their engines look like engines. You've got some funky little foam and plastic here and there, but overall, one of the better looking engine bays on sale today. I think the Legacy is the car you buy if you want all-weather capability, something kind of understated, a little bit subdued, not flashy, good amount of comfort, luxury, tech. From this rear 3/4 angle, it kind of reminds me of the last Saab Aero, especially in this gray. You get a decent amount of trunk space back here, 60/40 folding seats. There's a spare tire under there, a jack, all that good stuff. This is a little bit flimsy, but otherwise looks pretty good. No handle here to grab from the trunk, but luckily it closes very easily. In the back seats, look at this extra 1.4 inches of legroom. It's positively spacious back here. Plenty of room to put your feet underneath the seat. Very comfortable. Got a couple inches above my head. We even have heated seats back here and a couple USB ports. Pretty attractive interior. I really like this Napa leather. It feels good to the touch. Interior is designed pretty well. You even have a little slot here for passengers to put their mobile devices and various things. And it's rubberized, grippy, and so is the phone holder in the center console. One complaint though I do have is there is a lot of gloss black and shiny surfaces in here that I don't think will age well. So you really do, if you do own a Subaru Legacy, you're going to want to be extra careful about how you polish and clean all those surfaces. Otherwise that touchscreen is going to get really scratched up. Alright, I think that covers this walk around portion. Let's go for a drive, see how this does on the road. I'm a little bit excited to drive this 2.4 liter turbocharged Boxer because a rumor has it this might be the next engine in the BRZ. Who knows? Probably will be in a much different state of tune with a different transmission and everything, but with 260 horsepower, it's pretty quick, it's pretty powerful. The CVT simulates shifts, like all of them do pretty much now. Gone are the days of droney CVTs that are lackluster in response. And this paired with this turbocharged Boxer engine is actually pretty good. It's a nice powertrain. It's responsive. It has kind of this smoothness below a certain throttle threshold. And then when you really kind of give it a little bit more input from the accelerator, it'll downshift and give you more power in the higher revs. So it revs pretty well. It's pretty responsive off the line. It's comfortable when you're just tooling around town, and when you need to get on it, it acts more like a traditional automatic in that it gives you some revs. So that's nice. There's a lot of driver assistance, a lot of tech in this car. It all works pretty well, which is nice. One thing that I have turned off permanently is the lane keep assist feature, where it tells you, whether you're in or out of your lane. Though you do get a pretty permanent display on your gauge cluster telling you that it's off. There's a little display telling me that the vehicle ahead has moved, and you heard stop-start engaged there. The stop-start system is pretty consistent in how it works and when it works. It only lasts about 15-20 seconds before it starts back up again to run heat and various items inside the car. And when it does start up, it's a little bit jerky. It kind of gives you a little bit of a lurch with the engine transmission. So it is a system that I would normally turn off, but I've left it on for this review just so you guys can kind of experience what it's like. Not my favorite stop-start. It does disrupt the driving experience a little bit, and really it only saves a marginal amount of fuel because the engine turns back on again to run the accessories. Ride quality on this Legacy is fantastic. It's really smooth, it's really soft. It's kind of cushy and lazy around the corners, but over bumps it's very comfortable. It gives you a little bit of confidence, the feeling that you can kind of hustle this thing around on rougher terrain, like many Subarus these days. Take my sunglasses out of there since they're rattling. Let's throw this around a corner, see how it does. Put it into, I don't know, let's not even bother with manual transmission shifting here. A little bit of stability control there. It's a smooth system, not too intrusive. You can hear the transmission automatically giving us extra revs when it's sensing that we're driving spiritedly. I will say acceleration from this 2.4 turbo is pretty good. It's keeping us in these really high revs, thinking that we're on a back road. That's kind of cool. Plenty of power here. Decent transmission, decent drivetrain. And it should be pretty fuel efficient too on the highway, especially for an all-wheel drive vehicle. That is one advantage that you get with a sedan shape, is it's just a little bit slipperier through the air at highway speeds. And as a result, there's also less wind noise, which is nice. There, it's telling me to keep my eyes on the road. Big brother Subaru is always watching. Some of the tech does tend to get a little bit intrusive and distracting in this car at times. I don't know, luckily you can easily go in and turn it all off if you want, but for the average consumer, I feel like they'd always be getting warning messages coming up, popping up, telling them to do various things, and that might be a little bit invasive. Who knows? There's a lightness to all the controls in this Legacy. The steering is nicely weighted. Everything feels pretty quality. The only part that doesn't feel very nice are the turn signals. They feel a little bit cheap, a little bit plasticky. I don't know what Subaru changed with those, but it's really easy to get into the constant turn signal as opposed to just doing the European turn signal. It requires a lighter touch than you would think is necessary. Let's go onto the highway here. We'll test out cruise control. Do one more entrance ramp. There's a little bit of safe understeer at the limit, but you can feel it through the steering wheel. You can feel it. You can hear it through the tires. This isn't mind-blowing power, but it does get you up to speed quite well. I'm really impressed with this cruise control system. It works quite well. The active lane keep does a very nice job. The active steering does a really nice job keeping you centered. It engages quickly. There's this little green light in the heads-up display that tells you, what status it's at. If you need to keep your hands on the steering wheel, or if it's lost its sensing, it'll let you know kind of with some visual indicators in that light lit up heads-up display. So that's cool. The cruise control works really well. It comes to a complete stop, and you just tap the accelerator to keep going again. It resumes its speed really quickly. The only complaint that I have is that it's one press for 5-mile-an-hour increments, and you have to hold for 1-mile-an-hour increments. To me, that feels a little bit backwards, a little bit opposite of what it should be. But after getting used to it, it just means that I'm speeding a little bit more than I usually do, bumping it up to 80 instead of like 77 or so. But if you drive in 5-mile-an-hour increments, I guess it's a pretty easy system to operate. Ergonomics are great. I can use this whole system without taking my eyes off the road. Yeah, it's pretty good. Active steering tends to get into the way a little bit sometimes. So luckily though, it's very easy to turn off. It's all right here in this cluster of buttons, which I really appreciate. Let's delve into a sound test, why don't we? These buttons are so small and the screen is not very responsive, but we'll get there. We'll get through it. What is this, a Harman Kardon sound system? Yeah, that seems about right. Harman Kardon. Sounds great. Powerful, nice, rich, deep tones. We have a really quiet interior. We're going to be shortening this segment a little bit now. I think you guys pretty much get the idea of the sound quality. This is a nice system. No real complaints here as far as quality goes. This guy gonna let me by? Thank you. On cold start, there is a little bit of CVT whine. You heard it there accelerating from a stop. That doesn't give you the most confidence in the feeling of quality here. And I'm hearing some rattles from the door. But otherwise, this car feels pretty well bolted together. Feels pretty solid. Feels nice and luxurious. I like the shifter too. It's positioned nicely. This touchscreen tends to be a little bit far away of a reach sometimes. I feel like it's if everything is going to be controlled from these touchscreens, we need to bring them a little bit closer to the driver and have the response times taken down just a little bit. So otherwise though, not a lot of complaints about this Legacy. I think once you get everything dialed in with the systems and the infotainment and everything, you'll be pretty used to operating the systems in the car. Otherwise, it's a pretty nicely packaged sedan. All-wheel drive, should be good in the snow. It's got good ground clearance, decent fuel economy, nicely powered. Good all-rounder. So hopefully we'll get some snow tonight and we can kind of test this in winter driving conditions, because honestly today it feels like spring. This has been a crazy winter. We haven't had any snow at all to speak of. If it happens, we'll report that back then. Until then, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.